Michael DiMuccio, Toronto, Canada this morning. How are you?
I am awesome. Feel great.
I'm so happy that you decided to spend a few minutes with me here today. I have to tell you, this week has been amazing. We're sitting here mid-year of 2015, and I'm looking forward to June because it's my favorite time of the year with summer coming on. And I have to tell you, Mike, I got the week it's just been an extraordinary week with meeting people. Last night I was on the phone with a gentleman from Medellin, Colombia, a middle-aged gentleman, just got downsized after making $200,000 a year. And he asked me the question, how do you earn a living? And go clear across the Atlantic. I was on a Sunday with a young lady in Denmark, Copenhagen. Same thing, she's looking to create more happiness in her life. She's working a lot, doesn't have a lot of time. And she asked me the question, what do you do for a living? How do you earn a living? And then come full circle, I was talking to somebody in Northern California, a massage therapist, young gal in her early 20s. And she just goes, I just don't have any time. How do you find time? And, right over to Sydney, Australia, to a grandmother that was taking care of her grandchild. And she was, juggling the babysitting, but also saying to me, where do I find the time to do something like you do? And so all these people that I'm meeting, Mike, around the world and even right here in my own backyard, three things have been coming up of late: money, happiness, and time. And it's interesting how I just answer the same thing to everybody. But what I'd really like to hear today, Mike, is what you have to say about these three things, because we're going to talk a little bit about what we do, what we promote, and how we earn a living. But are you hearing the same thing? Is it just me, or is people really struggling with this idea of what money really is, how happiness is created, and where do I find more time? Because there's only 24 hours in a day. What are you hearing?
Well, William, first of all, thanks for hosting this morning and sharing these ideas with myself and with the audience that will be watching this. I'm hearing this everywhere. In fact, I've never experienced in my life a greater time where real serious questions are being asked by people. It's as if there's they're talking about this awakening that's happening globally. And people are starting to ask tough questions because the same old isn't working. People are more stressed. We may have more things. We may even have more money, but that's not leading to more happiness.
Correct.
People are more stressed. In fact, it's interesting. I had dinner with my brother-in-law just last night, and we were talking exactly about this, the idea that it's this revolving door, and you just don't know how to get out of this revolving door because he's got the same thing going on in his life and so many others. It's not just the time that we're living in. It's sort of the climax of an awareness. We've come to the conclusion that whatever it is that we were taught and believed to be true is not necessarily true, and is leading us to a path, a trajectory of a life of being in this rat race, this constant churn where there doesn't seem to be a way off. And then and this is the younger audience is starting to ask the same questions because they've watched their parents ahead of them go through this. And then the parents who are now coming out the end of that cycle, finding themselves without the time, the money, the energy, even the health, to have the quality of life that they thought they would be getting at this point in time after all the years of work and expenditure. So yeah, it's a very common issue right now.
So yeah, it's a hamster wheel, I think, is what I was relating to there, where how do I get off this hamster wheel? Let's break it down one at a time. Let's start with money. Because what I find about money is that people seem to think that there's more month than money. In other words, this thing called an instrument, I like to refer to as an instrument or a note, which is offered up in the form of an exchange. Usually people that provide a service, you exchange this note and you do interesting things with the notes. Some people save it. Some people wish they could save it. Some people buy what they think they buy. I always say that if someone says, I want to buy a new house. I said, well, I have a house. And I said, I don't own it. It owns me. The lawns, the paint, the repairs.
As Robert Kiyosaki says, your house is not an asset. If it's costing you money, it's a liability.
Yeah. So I think it's funny how we perceive this thing called money. But I was talking to somebody yesterday and I asked them to explain it to me, Mike. I said, do you have any money in your possession? They actually pulled out I think, a $5 bill. And I said, let's just pretend I just landed on planet Earth and I don't know this thing called money. I said, I can't see it. I'm on the phone. Explain it to me. Mike, you should actually ask somebody that question, because I was enamored with how they perceive this thing that they're holding in their hand called money. And really, it's a piece of paper. It's got green ink and a dead president on it, and it's got some numbers on it, and that pretty much represents the 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, $100 bill. But I asked them, what can I do with it? And it was interesting how they really didn't understand this thing called money, or the energy behind it, or the exchange. And so whenever I relate that to you and I provide a service. Safe to say?
Yep.
We promote what I consider to be the world's greatest longevity supplier in the world, and they pay us to promote them. And the small island in the Pacific called Japan has 110 million people, but over 51,000 are over 100 years of age and they're healthy. Women live to be over 86 years of age, healthy. Men live to be over 79 years of age, healthy. So we've landed this golden goose of a secret of well-being and this longevity idea, and to think that I belong to Costco at $112, $110 a year, and they don't pay me to promote them, but I tell everybody about Costco. And then I belong to Amazon.com Prime, $99 a year for free shipping, and I order books and CDs and spa filters for my jacuzzi and stuff for around the house. But I tell everybody how great it is, but they don't pay me. Here's a company that pays you and I to promote them. I like that, especially whenever we're being in service to other people. So if I was to ask you a question about money, why would you say that this paper with green ink in the US anyway, and dead presidents, I don't know about what your paper is, you get a lot of those notes deposited in your bank account every month for promoting this longevity supplier out of Japan? Why do most people have the other type of paper going into their letterbox that's called bills? Gas bills, water bills, phone bills, car payments, house payments. I mean, all these bills, credit card bills, and they just get, engulfed in this swarm of this other note called bills or invoices. And yet you and I get these other type of bills in our checking account every month from just being in service. How do you explain that to somebody listening?
This is a great question, because this really ties back to what is your concept of money? Money is an idea. And if we really go back historically and find out the source of the origin of money and what this paper is, it's just a note. It's a promise. In fact, it says right on it, it's a note, which means it's legal tender. We can exchange it for a service of something that we perceive as valuable. So in reality, most people are educated on the idea that time is money. And you hear them say it all the time. Got to run, time is money, time is money. And so when you've been programmed and your paradigm is time is money, then it's only natural that that's how you would perceive money, and that's how you would engage it. Your relationship to it would be based on time. So of course, people end up getting a job. But this is actually an industrial age idea. We go back further back. That wasn't the same relationship. But going back to this concept of what is money then? It's an exchange that we have for value, or something that's perceived as valuable. And what determines value? Well, that's different for different eras. At one point in time, it was valuable to be in the buggy whip business, because that's how we got around, on horses and on carriages. Today, it wouldn't be so valuable. So the perception of value changes with time as we evolve as a species and as we develop in terms of our age demographic. Our needs change. And so what we consider valuable at a certain age versus another age. So it's an exchange for what is perceived as valuable. So if your relationship to money is based on time, then how you see money is limited.
Correct.
Because there's only 24 hours in a day.
That's exactly my next point. As we transition from this understanding of money to time, I used the analogy with this person yesterday in Colombia. I said, if you had leaves that fell underneath your tree onto your lawn, and I provided a service to come over and rake those leaves, I would hand you a piece of paper, a white piece of paper with black ink on it for my services. It's called an invoice. And let's just say it was for an hour and I charged you $20. I said, when I handed that to you, you would have to exchange with me your note, which is the $20 bill, green ink, and a dead president. And I said, we'd be even. But your note that I gave you turns into a receipt, which you can take to your filing cabinet. My note, I can take down the street and buy lunch. Now, what's interesting is, I really can't buy the lunch. Mm-hmm. I said, what I can do is have somebody prepare a bowl of soup with a piece of bread and maybe a Coke and a slice of pie, but I'm not buying that lunch. I'm exchanging my $20 note for somebody to serve me the lunch, somebody to prepare me the lunch, and I'm going to get an invoice that turns into a receipt, probably for $19 plus tip and so on and so forth. So this whole idea of exchanging these notes for service, I told them, I said, let's start a relief raking business, you and I said, so there's 24 hours in a day. We got to eat. We got to sleep. We got some other things we probably got to do with family. So is it safe to say that we've got 10 hours left to rake leaves? He goes, yeah, probably. I said, okay. At $20 an hour, 10 hours a day, that's $200 a day times 5 times a week is $1,000 a week. I said, that's a pretty good living. But I said, what if we wanted to increase our lifestyle and be able to make $2,000 a week and $3,000 a week? How are we going to find more time? Because we're going to have to hire more people. I said, yeah, but we're going to have to pay them. So instead of getting the $20, we're going to get more like $5. And then we got to pay the overhead of the insurance and the compensation and the trucks and the travel. And I said, all of a sudden it becomes a bit of a headache. So Mike, I don't have a number to get more time. Everybody gets 24. But how do you make this exchange for service work beyond 24 hours a day or 40 hours a week, which is what we've been programmed?
We learn how to leverage time, not trade it. If I've only got 24 hours and only 10 of them is work hours, and if I trade away those 10 hours for a wage, that's often the case determined by somebody else's perception of what I'm worth or what the job is worth, then I've limited myself in my earning potential. But if I learn to leverage time, meaning I can create ample amounts of it, and how do I do that? Provide a value. A service of some kind of value. For instance, William,
fill a need.
William, here's a simple example. If I shared an idea with you, an idea that allows you to earn $5 that you otherwise would never have been able to earn without me sharing this idea, an extra $5 for the day, would you feel it unfair to maybe offer me $1 back as an exchange and say, thank you for showing me how to do this. I'm now earning $5 for that I'm going to keep for myself, and what I'm going to give to you is just a thank you. Would that be unfair?
I think it's a form of gratitude.
Okay, so now if I did that 10 times today, I've helped 10 people earn $5 they would not have earned without me telling them. And they each give me $1. That's $10. Each of them have earned $4. I've earned 10. What have I done? I've created a way to leverage time by teaching somebody something of great value that is in turn something they can employ for themselves and create value in their life.
So what you're telling me is that even though you promote yourself, this idea of longevity with this company of 40 years, stemming from Japan with an unbelievable philosophy, you spend just as much time helping other people do the same thing.
As a matter of fact. Well, the concept of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if it's good for me, I have no hesitation or reservation to offer it to somebody else or to share the idea with somebody else.
So why doesn't Costco or Amazon do that with me? If I'm out there promoting them, why wouldn't they give me $1 for telling everybody what a great establishment they are? I don't understand.
Well, maybe they just haven't discovered that there's a more efficient way to do things. And right now it costs them a tremendous amount of money and resources to keep themselves top of mind in terms of the public's perception. But if the public was doing it for them, which at this point in time, I guess to some degree the public does do that. Where'd you get this? I went to Costco. My parents are always saying, this steak, I got this at Costco. They got a sale on blah, blah, blah. So to some degree that happens. But how many years later is that happening? And how many millions upon millions of dollars were set up in infrastructure costs before they even made any money? So that's one way of doing it, but it's a hard way of doing it, and it's not accessible to the average person.
Is there a limit to these $4 and $1?
No, this is just as an illustration. So essentially, I'm just giving you an example of how to leverage time. I've provided a valuable service that is not limited to my time, because I can take that information, for instance, and pass it on to other people. Now, what's really important to note, though, is that we are, in fact, living in the information age. We're no longer in the industrial age. So if what you're sharing with other people is an industrial age idea, it's probably related to the time-money equation, where you have to give a certain amount of time for them to pay you a certain amount of dollars in value. In the information age, here we are right now. I'm in Toronto. Where are you at?
I'm in Oregon.
You're in Oregon. We're talking live streaming here. This could be going out to the world at large, could be played back. We could be in multiple countries. This technology has made it possible for my physical time to be multiplied globally. So I'm not even physically limited to where I live anymore.
Mike,
where I am anymore.
Last night I was sitting right here, and I was in Bogota, Colombia, Denmark, Sydney, Australia, and Northern California, and Vermont. And I slept in my own bed. I mean, I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and drive to work and put in 12 hours and drive home so fatigued I couldn't get out of bed the next morning. And now I'm refreshed. I feel great, but I traveled the world yesterday.
Exactly. So now our physical presence is now being able to be leveraged or multiplied. So we're not limited to where we can do this form of business or this marketing or this promotion or this exchange of value. So again, industrial age idea, or just before the advancement of this technology, we had to physically be somewhere to provide a service. Yeah. And then we had to drive home or fly home or whatever. Now we even have the luxury of being able to do this from a phone on our desk or when we're out having a coffee with a friend. So this is just another idea of how things are changing and evolving, where once upon a time it may have been hard-pressed for somebody to believe it was possible for them to go and create wealth and create lots of time or lots of money freedom because they didn't have the required skill set. They weren't in the commodities. They didn't own land. They weren't a developer. They didn't have oil fields, things like that. Resources. Today, the resource is information. That's the real resource.
Yeah. And for instance, I just quoted about the longevity. Who knew that Japan still holds the record as the healthiest country in the world? Mike, we got to transition because we went from money to time, and I got to ask you this question. How does this equate to happiness? I mean, I was filled with joy. I know you were good friends and stuff, but I got so much joy from a selfie that you took of yourself standing on the beach of Barbados last week, saying, "Here's what my day looks like." I mean, I love that. And I travel to Australia and all over the world and stuff too. We have that. But most people staycation today. Most people dream or visualize about that 2-week vacation or taking the family to Disney World or Disneyland. Mike, this understanding of money and this understanding of time that you so eloquently displayed here, how does it transition to happiness? Because I know you're happy.
Oh, man. Okay. So if you didn't have to work for a living, if you didn't have to do something maybe you didn't really enjoy, just so that you could earn a wage, so you could pay those bills, those receivables that come in the mail, then what would you do with the extra time you had? Let's say if your current work schedule is 40, 50 hours a week, and you pared that down to 10 or 15 hours a week, what would you do with the rest of that time? And what you would probably do is you would find some hobbies or some interests. And eventually, I think you'll probably find you're most happy doing something that's creative, that gives you a sense of fulfillment and a sense of purpose, where your unique ability as a person, as a human being, can really shine. Nice. And that's when somebody really becomes happy. So this quest, this path, this trajectory that we've all been raised to believe that success is about what you have. There's a lot of people that have what we would perceive as the equation for success and are not happy, because they are not investing their time and energy on a daily basis doing what makes them happy. In fact, most of the time and energy is going to try and keep this thing up, hold the fort up and hold everything together. And they've created for themselves a huge juggernaut, because the more successful they are, the bigger the trap they've created. This is a typical strategy, especially in the industrial age, because the higher you go up the corporate ladder, the higher you go up the success chain, the more responsibility you have, the more people are dependent on you, the more stress you feel.
So what? So what was that trip like to Barbados? Because it really doesn't matter if you're in Toronto or Barbados or Brisbane, Australia. Where do you be able to walk away from that type of responsibility, but yet still provide such a service to so many people around the world?
Well, I love this concept of compounding. If you think about the idea of a penny, if I gave you a penny every day, we have all heard this story. If I handed you a penny with the promise to double that penny every day, or give you $1 million today, which would you choose?
Oh, everybody chooses the million.
Yeah, they think, hey, the $1 million, because you're still in the perception of the old paradigm.
And not only that, they would spend the million so fast because they still don't understand money.
In fact, that's really interesting because the statistics are that somebody who wins the lottery is going to actually end up owing more money than before they won the lottery within 3 years of having won the lottery. How is that even possible?
Ignorant.
Not yet developed the consciousness to attract that kind of stuff and to hold that into in their space. Right. So what I'm talking about is, and even more important, because the penny doubling concept or the compounding principle allows you to acquire the consciousness, allows you to be the person worthy to actually acquire wealth. If you get it overnight handed to you like that, there's a pretty good chance you're going to lose it. But if you build it with a simple strategy, simple things that you can do on a daily basis that compound over time, creates enormous success. And so the idea of leveraging time. If I saw one person a day and I converted that person into somebody who was able to be productive in their own way and in their own life for their own reasons, but I was able to share in their prosperity, and I did that every day at the end of the year, that'd be 365 people that I would have as an organization of people who were doing their own thing for their own reasons, for their own motivation, for their own fulfillment, for their own satisfaction, but I was earning a small percentage or a small reward for that effort. Well, there's no end to how far that can go. But it starts with one person. It's the idea of compounding over time, something that works, that over time becomes something significant. So maybe at first, $1 is not going to get me much, but $10 might buy me a coffee or a breakfast, then $100, then $1,000, then $10,000, and you could conceivably earn in a month what most people earn or more than what people earn in a year. How? Because you're no longer limited to your time. You're no longer limited to where you physically are, because you've learned how to create value in a manner that's independent of the relationship of time and money.
Okay, so in closing, I got to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because there's probably people listening to this all over the world. I got to put in the yeah, but. So I like what I've heard. I could probably get excited about promoting this concept of longevity and being the world's largest supplier of longevity products and getting paid for it. But I'm young, I'm old, I'm stuck, I'm financially in a troubled place. I don't have an education. I don't have a supportive spouse. I don't have a lot of time. I don't know a lot of people. The yeah buts are I could go another half hour. What's the one thing that you can tell somebody listening to this now to act on? Because, I know there's people that have purposes that deep down, they want to bring them out. They have visions, they have passion, but they're stuck, Mike. I mean, reality check here. I mean, it's just easy for you to say, Mike, but I'm in a bad place, but I like what I'm hearing. What do I do?
Find a mentor.
Ooh.
Find a mentor. Now, let me just, one of our colleagues often would say, a lot of people they're in this box, this cardboard box.
Mental prison.
Yeah, this mental prison. This is, the box represents everything you know and believe to be true, the sum total of all the results in your life. And you're in that box and you want to break out of that box, but you don't know how. Why? Because the instructions to get out of the box are written on the outside of the box. So what do you need? You need somebody on the outside of the box who can read you the instructions. You need somebody who's not where you're at. You need somebody who's further down the road who can actually show you by their own personal example that there is a way out and how to get out. And so that's where a mentor comes in, or a personal coach. And I think major religions in the world have always taught that there needs to be that one person who's guiding you and assisting you, because there is a higher awareness involved in the space that you want to occupy. If this is what my life is today, and 3 years from today, this is my life. I went from this person to this person. Not just my physical situation has changed, but my mental situation has changed. How do I grow into that person? Well, it's a heck of a lot easier to have help from somebody who can help you, who knows what it's like to be there and to guide you, than it is to keep making mistakes. And what happens is people try this. They go into the entrepreneurial thing on their own. They make mistakes. They're laughed at. Their family, who's been waiting for them to fail, reminds them of how stupid their idea was in the first place. And so they sit there cooped up and they just learn to live in that box because everybody else is doing it. You know, misery loves company. They look to the right and they look to the left and they say, oh, well, everybody else is in the same boat. Well, you know what? I learned a long time ago that it's popular to be broke, sick, and miserable. And I don't want to be popular. Excellent note to end on. So what I'm hearing is we respect where you may be, but find somebody that can see more in you than you can see in yourself, because you may be in that mental prison or inside that box, and we can read the instructions clearly. Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm saying. In fact, and just want to, so this footnote, 2 nights ago, I had dinner with my mentor and someone who's had a huge influence in my life. Many of the audience would know this name, Bob Proctor, from the famous movie, The Secret. Now imagine, where was I before Bob Proctor came along? Well, I was already involved, but struggling to some degree in my life and in my business and my endeavors. But it just took one person to come along who had very clear understanding of these principles. And the first thing he will tell you, and the first thing I'll tell you, because it's the first thing he said 2 nights ago to the person I had at the dinner table, the answer is really simple. Make a decision. Everything starts from that moment in time you make a decision. Until then, nothing changes. So make a decision, you the listener here right now to this, make a decision to get back together with the person that shared this with you and find out how you can be paid to promote longevity, because that's what the world's looking for. Mike, thank you so much. I would like to ask your permission to come back and do this again and break down maybe 3 sessions, one all about money, one all about time, and one all about happiness and balance. Would you be willing to do that? I'd love to. Thank you, Wim. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Good day, everybody.